Welcome to another episode of Chef Knives to Go Quick Look Product Reviews. I'm Steve Gamache, and what we have this time is an interesting knife. This is the Matsubara Ginsan Damascus Gyuto 210 millimeter. So this has a multi-layer construction. The hard center core cutting steel is known as Ginsan or Ginsanko or Silver 3. It's a really nice conventional stainless steel that's fine grained, easy to sharpen. It'll take a great edge. It's just one of the better kind of standard conventional, non-powdered metallurgy stainless steels out there for knives. It's excellent stuff. The heat treat's around 60 to 61 Rockwell on that core steel, and what they do is on either side of that hard core steel, they've got a softer stainless multi-layered cladding with a fairly kind of a semi-mirror polish on it. It's fairly polished, but multi-layer, so it's a real interesting looking knife. The layers, the way they've etched it, there's some texture to them. It's smooth, but you can run your fingers across it and feel the layers there. They've got really well done hand chiseled kanji on the left side of the blade as you hold it. So there's kind of our beauty shot. And then here's the right side of the blade. You can see the polish on it. These will vary just a little bit from knife to knife in the dimensions and weights a little bit. This particular one is 190 grams or 6.7 ounces. The edge length was right about 210 on the money from the tip to the back of the heel, about 8¼ inches long on the cutting edge. The overall length is about 350 millimeter or just a little under 14 inches. These are a little thicker coming out of the handle, and I measured this one about 3.3 millimeters, and then it thins down to about 2.5, about halfway down the blade, and then starts to kind of, doesn't have a ton of taper, but it starts to thin up and then gets pretty thin at the very tip. So the tip works really well on this. It's also thin at the edge. I did get a chance to play with this one a little bit, and it's a nice performing knife. The edge is quite thin, so it's a really well crafted grind on this. It's a straight blade. It's got a fair amount of stiffness to it, fair amount of polish, as you can see. They're tall. That's kind of their style on this line. So this is about 53 millimeters tall, which is pretty doggone tall for a 210. But you can see you got lots of finger clearance here. I don't think anybody could use this that wouldn't have adequate finger clearance. Octagonal rosewood, it says on the site, with the black backerwood ferrule. Could also, the other handle almost look like walnut, but either way, it's a nicely finished handle. It's kind of nothing super fancy, but the finish works nice. They got a little sloppy with the glue up on this, as well as the bunka I looked at, so there's a little bit of glue on the, residual glue on the ferrule here, and it's a little bit extra glue kind of around the tang where you could kind of clean that up if you wanted, just kind of careful with that. But anyway, just a side note. The fit and finish is nice on the blade. You can see this kind of semi-polish. We talked about that. They've got a polish on the spine and a fair amount of relief on the spine as well. It's a little bit rounded and a nicely relieved, contoured, polished choil into the neck and the tang. So it's just a really smooth, nice job on that. This has a nice, I'd say maybe 6 out of 10 out of the box edge on it. It was crafted pretty well. Again, a fairly stiff blade, just an interesting knife. A fair amount of rigidity to it. Balance point with this particular handle is right about there. So for me, that's actually just a touch in front of my pinch grip. So you got a little bit of mass there, but it's still a fairly light knife. Here is the cutting board look. So you can see the tip's fairly low in relation to the center line. It's got a fair amount of belly towards the tip, so I can get pretty high on it. So this will rock really well. You can see it's not a real flat profile. You've got some kind of continuous contour all the way to the back. So this is not a chopper, in my opinion. It'll work good for some other techniques, push-pull cuts, glide cuts, definitely rocking. You could do some draw cuts with this as well. They got to raise the knife fairly high for that. But it's again, it's a nice performer. It's a good balanced performing knife. It feels good in the hand. It's tall if you like that. That may or may not be your particular preference, but it's a well-executed blade. It's interesting. It's just a cool addition to the chef knives to go stable. So this is the Matsubara Ginsan or Silver 3 all stainless Damascus Gyuto 210 millimeter knife.